Okay, so today we're going to read some Marx. This is from the German Ideology, 1845, Part 1, Feuerbach, Opposition of the Materialist and Idealist Outlook. A, Idealism and Materialism. We're going to read a few sections out of Idealism and Materialism. Okay, so first we're going to start with the illusions of German ideology. As we hear from German ideologists, Germany has in the last few years gone through an unparalleled revolution. The decomposition of the Hegelian philosophy, which began with Strauss, has developed into a universal ferment into which all the powers of the past are swept. In the general chaos, mighty empires have arisen only to meet with immediate doom. Heroes have emerged momentarily only to be hurled back into obscurity by bolder and stronger rivals. It was a revolution beside which the French Revolution was child's play. A world struggle beside which the struggles of the Diadochi, successors of Alexander the Great, appear insignificant. Principles ousted one another. Heroes of the mind overthrew each other with unheard of rapidity. And in the 3 years, 1842 through 1845, more of the past was swept away in Germany than at other times in 3 centuries. All this is supposed to have taken place in the realm of pure thought. Certainly, it is an interesting event we are dealing with. The putrescence of the absolute spirit. When the last spark of its life had failed, the various components of this caput mortuum began to decompose, entered into new combinations and formed new substances. The industrialists of philosophy, who till then had lived on in the exploitation of the absolute spirit, now seized upon the new combinations. Each with all possible zeal, set about retailing his apportioned share. This naturally gave rise to competition, which, to start with, was carried on in moderately staged bourgeois fashion. Later, when the German market was glutted, and the commodity, in spite of all efforts, found no response in the world market, the business was spoiled in the usual German manner by fabricated and fictitious production, deterioration in quality, adulteration of the raw materials, falsification of labels, fictitious purchases, bill jobbing, and a credit system devoid of any real basis. The competition turned into a bitter struggle, which is now being extolled and interpreted to us as a revolution of world significance, the begetter of the most prodigious results and achievements. If we wish to rate at its true value this philosophic charlatanry, which awakens even in the breast of the honest German citizen a glow of national pride, if we wish to bring out clearly the pettiness, the parochial narrowness of this whole young Hegelian movement, and in particular the tragicomic contrast between the illusions of these heroes about their achievements and the actual achievements themselves, we must look at the whole spectacle from a standpoint beyond the frontiers of Germany. So we're going to read a second part here. Ideology in general, German ideology in particular. German criticism has, right up to its latest efforts, never quitted the realm of philosophy. Far from examining its general philosophic premises, the whole body of it inquires as actually sprung from the soil of a definite philosophical system, that of Hegel. Not only in their answers, but in their very questions, there was a mystification. The dependence on Hegel is the reason why not one of these modern critics has even attempted a comprehensive criticism of the Hegelian system. However, much each profess to have advanced beyond Hegel. Their polemics against Hegel and against one another are confined to this. Each extracts on one side of the Hegelian system and turns this against the whole system as well as against the sides extracted by the others. To begin with, they extracted pure, unfalsified Hegelian categories such as substance and self-consciousness. Later, they desecrated these categories with more secular names such as species, the unique, man, etc. The entire body of German philosophical criticisms from Strauss to Stirner is confined to criticism of religious conceptions. The critics started from real religion and actual theology. What religious consciousness and a religious conception really meant was determined variously as they went along. Their advance consisted in subsuming the allegedly dominant metaphysical, political, jurisdictional, moral, and other conceptions under the class of religious or theological conceptions. and similarly in pronouncing political, jurisdictional, moral consciousness as religious or theological, and the political, jurisdictional, moral man in the last resort as religious. The dominance of religion was taken for granted. Gradually, every dominant relationship was pronounced a religious relationship and transformed into a cult of law, a cult of the state, etc. On all sides, it was only a question of dogmas and belief in dogmas. The world was sanctified to an ever-increasing extent till at last our venerable Saint Max was able to canonize it en bloc and thus dispose of it once for all. The old Hegelians had comprehended everything as soon as it was reduced to an Hegelian logical category. The young Hegelians criticized everything by attributing to its religious conceptions or by pronouncing it a theological matter. The young Hegelians are in agreement with the old Hegelians in their belief in the role of religion, of concepts, of a universal principle in the existing world. Only the one party attacks this dominion as usurpation, while the other extols it as legitimate. Since the young Hegelians consider conceptions, thoughts, ideas, in fact all the products of consciousness to which they attribute an independent existence, as the real chains of men, just as the old Hegelians declared them the true bonds of human society, it is evident that the young Hegelians have to fight only against three illusions of consciousness. Since according to their fantasy, the relationship of men, all their doings, their chains, and their limitations are products of their consciousness, the young Hegelians logically put to men the moral postulate of exchanging their present consciousness for human, critical, or egoistic consciousness, and thus of removing their limitations. This demand to change consciousness amounts to a demand to interpret reality in another way, i.e., to recognize it by means of another interpretation. The young Hegelian ideologists, in spite of their allegedly world-shattering statements, are the staunchest conservatives. The most recent of them have found the correct expression for their activity when they declare they are only fighting against phrases. They forget, however, that to these phrases they themselves are only opposing other phrases, and that they are in no way combating the real existing world when they are merely combating the phrases of this world. The only results which this philosophic criticism could achieve were a few, and at that thoroughly one-sided, elucidations of Christianity from the point of view of religious history. All the rest of their assertions are only further embellishments of their claim to have furnished, in these unimportant elucidations, discoveries of universal importance. It has not occurred to any one of these philosophers to inquire into the connection of German philosophy with German reality, the relation of their criticism to their own material surroundings. Okay, so yeah, we'll stop there. And those are just two parts of this, of idealism and materialism. Let's see, next. There's going to be more of them in here that we will get to. And yeah, we'll get back to this. This is Idealism and Materialism by Marx, of the German ideology. Okay, well, yep, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube, TikTok, all of that. Marx saw. Hit me up, follow me, whatever. Thank y'all, and Dodala Goy.